kicking things off, it was interesting. I guess we've had this will be 3 match days that all started with the Derby since we've been back. If that's correct, because we had the very first one back was the Riviera Derby um, that Friday,
Yep.
and then this week we had the Berlin Derby, and then we'll cover in a little bit the Classicer. So Berlin Derby, it was an interesting one. So got the you know. um, Hertha big winners, but I think that the scoreline is a little deceiving based on the first half of that one. It was a really tight fixture. Um, Definitely lived up to the bill. I mean, both teams really going at it. Um, but I don't know what you like from Hertha. I mean, obviously, the 4-0 win is big, and I think it's more than enough to get their revenge.
Yeah, I think the break and having a new coach and having some early success with that new coach, big help to Hertha there. They came in with the points to prove. Even without their home fans in their home stadium, they knew that that game was still in their mind, and they knew that they were capable of putting in a performance like that. But not surprising. You know, Union, they lost the previous weekend. Wasn't much of it. I mean, obviously losing to Bayern, it's not a big deal, but you don't want to go in there with the loss. But you look at the score sheet: Ibisevic, Luka Bacchio, Cunha, and then Boyata. Those are probably four of the best players on that Hertha squad, and their man all year really since his since his arrival has been Cunha. I mean, that man's just a masterclass on the ball right now. But Luka Bacchio coming in new, and then Ibisevic obviously being, the veteran that they have there. It was just too much. They were on paper the better side, and they put it all together. Just a solid team all the way around there. Really liked what they had to bring to the table, and I think just revenge factor, and then reminding everybody, hey, this is our city. It's been our city for the longest time. Don't forget that. Sometimes you got to beat up your little brother or whatever, especially if your little brother got one on you. And I think that game was so much more about the environment that Union had created. It was packed out. It was the first one. It was, a week either before or after the 30th anniversary of the Berlin Wall. There's a lot of emotion, and it was a little bit of a, freak win for Union. It wasn't as decisive by any means.
Yeah, an interesting point for me too. When you talk about the freak win, is Boyata was one who gave up that penalty in the first fixture, and then getting the goal in this one. You can see the relief on his face. He was hungry for that one. He's had a heck of a year. We talk about him. Just very unfortunate that he was on the wrong end of things in that first fixture. But yeah, to your point on Cunha, I mean, incredible. I think this highlights something that we've said about Leipzig, just how deep they are. This is a guy certainly was not one of the stars at Leipzig. And I think that was one of the good reasons why he ended up leaving. But again, it just highlights that so many of these guys could go to other clubs and be the focal point, be the star. And we even look at this with Josef Paulsen, rumors with him going somewhere, Timo Werner, just so many talented players there. Not an RB fan, but if they do stay, I think it further highlights just how deep they are with the team they have right now. But yeah,
I mean, I was just going to say that that's sort of been the theme, I think, of the guys at the top. Those top 4 or 5 teams have been their ability to have an extended amount of depth to come in, either to face injuries or, in this case, with this quickened season where you're playing more games more often, that depth comes in handy, right? You're not limited when you bring in somebody based on their talent level. You're bringing in like for like talent level players.
Yeah, and I think I asked you guys this last week, like how everyone felt, or maybe it was off air, about the extra substitutions. I've really enjoyed the extra subs. Even these games look like they were both made for subs, but even just that extra one, can make a big difference. Um, I really like it. We'll see what happens long term. I assume that we'll go back to the 3, but I think there has been some talks for quite a while about maybe changing the rules a bit as far as subs. So
I'm a big fan of it. I think, for some of these smaller clubs, it really helps to get those fresh legs out there. But
unless you're Hansi Flick,
well, yeah,
which we'll
and
get to.
which we'll get to. That's a very different point. But I think what I said on our last show was that the extra subs will be more beneficial to some of the lower teams. Obviously these two Berlin teams are one of the lower teams, and I think you're seeing that ability there to make those extra subs, bring on some guys. Keep fresh legs, prevent injuries, or if there's an early injury, you're not down a man or asking somebody to play hurt.
Yeah, for sure. One other one as we talk about subs, and I think that this was beneficial as far as having the extra sub. Anderson was someone I wanted to ask about. We didn't really touch on him too much last week because he wasn't really featured. I think he came in late in that fixture. Had been rested last week because he was about to get that. Had he picked up a yellow card, he would miss the derby.
Yep.
So Berlin had opted to rest him. I think he came in probably about 80th minute. Might have been a little bit earlier than that in the Bayern fixture. But question marks around that. Do you think ultimately that was the right decision for Union to make? Or do you think that he maybe would have benefited playing against Bayern? Union put up a fight, and you have to wonder if he had been in, would the game have been even more competitive? And then he's got a little bit more under his belt, getting ready for the derby.
I have no issue with how that situation was handled. I even suggested that Lewandowski be sat out, either this game or the Union game or the Frankfurt game, preserving him for the Klassiker, not wanting to lose him for that. So I have no issues there, especially a guy like Anderson who's going to compete for so many of those aerial duels. Off the chart numbers right now for what his aerial duels are. And so, I don't have an issue with protecting him. Your expectation is that you're a professional and you should show up every day ready to play. You shouldn't need that tune-up game. That's why they have individual trainings. That's why they have team trainings ahead of games. So no issues there with the rest. That was on the manager. But if just pulling up the numbers right now, duels won, he's number one in. Aerial duels won, he's got over 100 more than the next closest person. So that he's going to compete for a lot of those. You do run the risk when you have a guy like that he goes in for a challenge and gets that yellow card, and then you lose him altogether. So I think it's totally fine to say, hey guys, we're not going to risk it.
Yeah, and very good point. I believe still leads the league in fouls too. If not at the top, they're second. I know that them and Wolfsburg have been neck and neck for most of the season. So that's another point. I think about with Lewandowski, I was a little bit less concerned with him. He does have the tendency to pick up fouls with the way that he tracks back, but certainly not at the rate of Union.
Union does sit first over, I think, 41 ahead of Cologne. And then in Wolfsburg, and Mainz aren't too far behind there. But, those teams towards the bottom, especially those newly promoted teams, you often see have to be a little more aggressive, and that's what you get out of a team like Union. And I think that sort of matches their fans. They're that working class, blue collar style fan, and the fans appreciate that.
Wish I could talk about Schalke right now, but we'll get there. When we talk about working class fans.